In September 2019, Andy and I got married on the Saturday, and then we went on honeymoon on the Monday. On Tuesday, we'd gone to our beds. We had a reasonably early night, thankfully, nothing to drink. So when 2:30 in the morning, the phones were going absolutely crazy. We answered the phone call, and it was Danny, my eldest son, and the phone call was, the house is on fire, the dogs are inside, and we can't get them out. From receiving that phone call, we literally watched our house burn down over FaceTime while we were away, unable to do anything, but just sit there
Try and
watching
reassure
it.
the boys.
Yeah, trying to just reassure everybody and kind of giving instructions from over there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, you were on the phone to the fire brigade from over there. Initially when the fire had started and they said they couldn't get the animals out, we spoke and we told them to break down the front door in the extension,
Yeah.
so that if there was any animals that had survived, they could potentially get out the house that way, and tried to just sort of reassure and advise over the phone, over FaceTime, literally watching the whole thing. And then you were able to phone the insurance company from over there to arrange the hotel for the boys to go into straight away and things.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, as trying to book a hotel, you think it's fairly easy, but it wasn't easy at all.
No, it was quite difficult getting all that arranged and things, wasn't it? Yeah. And then we came home, we got the soonest flight home that we could on the Wednesday so that we were able to come home. Danny phoned the fire brigade, I think.
Yeah, it took about, from what we've been told, 29 minutes for the fire service to arrive, which is a really good response. Our local fire stations retain.
So the house was annihilated by that point, really.
Yeah.
In the house at the time of the fire, we had the two boys. So Danny at the time was 17, Jamie was 16, and the boys were both at college and school. So my ex-husband came down and stayed in the house with them as well. So Donald was in the property at the time of the fire. And then on top of that, we had 3 dogs and 2 cats. So the dogs were in the kitchen with the door closed. They'd been in the kitchen at the time of the fire. Jamie had slept through the smoke alarm going off. Donald had wakened up and he'd gone through. So Donald went through and opened the kitchen door and realised the room was absolutely full of smoke, closed it again, and he got out and went round and started to tackle the fire just with a garden hose. Jamie was still in his bed, but Danny went through to waken Jamie and get him up. Jamie said when he got out his bed, he put his feet on the floor and he knew there was a fire because his floor was hot, so he knew there was a problem. And both the boys then, we'd given them a fire evacuation plan, so they knew exactly what to do.
It's something that just comes up in conversation. Yeah, we just prepared. Yeah, and it was so lucky that
they did exactly what we told them to do. So they went through to Danny's room, they went out of Danny's window onto the conservatory, followed it round, and they'd even grabbed the duvet to throw the duvet onto the floor to jump down onto, because the boys literally escaped the fire wearing their boxer shorts, their phone in their hand. One of them had shoes on and the other one didn't.
Typical teenagers.
Yeah,
they took the phone, which was a good thing because they managed to then phone the fire service. So.
Yeah, but that was their possessions. That was everything they were left with.
That's all they were left with. There was nothing else.
No, there was nothing, was there? When the boys exited the house, they went down and then they re-entered the burning building. So they came back in through the conservatory door in the hallway and then through into the kitchen to try and save the animals. And at this point, Jamie explains that there was flames when he was in that room, which just does not even bear thinking about. There was flames in the utility room beside him. He managed to usher 2 of the dogs. One ran past, and Danny managed to grab the other one. So unfortunately, our Labrador stayed in our bed in the kitchen. She didn't move out of the kitchen at all.
Just a normal response for a gun dog. She went to a bed.
She just stayed in our bed. She didn't move. The one dog was able to be saved. Unfortunately, the one that ran past the boys, she'd gone and hidden in the conservatory, we think under a table maybe. The fire brigade got her and took her out, and we don't know. There was one cat that died as well. We're not sure where she was, but the fire brigade had found her and brought her out as well. And one Moggy survived. One of our cats survived the fire.
I think really it's the loss of the animals. In those circumstances, a perfectly healthy 3-year-old gun dog that was highly trained. And, she was
my teammate when we were out, isn't
when we was out. And losing her, that was very difficult. The psychological damage that he'd done was immense to both the boys and ourselves. It's going to take a long time to get over that. Even 5 years on, it's quite difficult, you know. But we had a torrid time with the insurance company and the loss adjusters. Unfortunately, they certainly started out offering plenty of support, but we soon realised that support was in their interest only, and it was quite challenging. They certainly didn't help us at all during the 2 years really that we were battling with the insurance company.
And it's little things as well that you don't think about. So after the fire, as I said, the fire brigade had found the cat and one of the dogs and had set them aside for us, so we were able to find them and get them buried, but nobody told us at the time where they were. So thankfully one of my friends knew one of the fire crew and was able to make the phone call for us to find out where they'd actually put the animals, so we managed to find them. But the Labrador who was in the kitchen, the insurance company don't deal with that. So what ended up happening was the fire assessor guy, the one who what's it called?
The fire inspector.
The fire inspector. When he came, he found where Morven was for us in the room, and then you had to go.
Give us a location. The problem is the upstairs and the roof all ended up in the kitchen, so it was quite a challenge to actually dig through all the rubble and the timbers that had fallen in, and we managed to remove a certain amount of that, and then I had to go in and...
You had to go in and dig the dog out, and that's caught you out every moment of every day, because that was so traumatic, having to actually find his dog and dig the dog out. And the insurance company don't deal with that. That was something that Andy had to go in and do.
We had to do that ourselves. So.
And that really traumatised you hugely, because...
Surprisingly so, 6'2", you don't expect that sort of response. But yeah, that's what we were dealing with at the time. It's quite traumatic.
It was. It was. And there's lots of little bits and pieces like that, you know, you have a house fire and it's really traumatic, but there's all these other bits that you don't realise that actually catch you out afterwards. The loss of the items in the house, you know, you lose your sofas, you go and buy another sofa, But then there was lots of little bits and pieces. Like, for example, I had a handwritten recipe book, and in my handwritten recipe book that I had, it had recipes from my granny, because I had, as she was cooking, I used to weigh things and write it down, and just a whole gathering of things like that.
Yeah.
And you went in. That was something
we
else.
managed
You
to
went
recover
in.
that. It was,
Yeah, that was another thing, because the insurance company arranged for a firm to come in and just clear the room. But you actually went in and dug into the kitchen knowing what cupboard it had been in, and you got my recipe books.
Yeah, we separated each page. Water-soaked pages as smoke damage, and we separated each page and took photographs. So we recovered some.
Exactly.
Some of the bits and pieces.
That's just an example of the little things that if it's gone, it's irreplaceable. You just can't get it again. So
No.
we did things like that, didn't we?
Yeah.
And you found it, you know.
But it's silly stuff. Even months after, you think to yourself, and you're walking around Tesco's, you think, no,
I know.
we've got some of that. We don't need to buy that. No, that was prior to the fire.
Yeah.
And it took
You forget, don't you? Because
many months
you go
to-
to find something in the kitchen cupboard, and then it's like, oh, we had that before the fire. Did we replace it? Didn't we replace it?
Yeah.
And then, you can't remember if you've rebought it or not. And then sometimes we've got triples of things because we keep forgetting we've bought it, It's just things like that that really catch you out. And you think, oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely for us, the pets was...
That was the most, and looking back on it, we were so close to losing the boys.
Yes, especially because they re-entered the building. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We were, in a way, you always say you're glad that you weren't there, because you would have had us all pinned on the driveway, because I would have re-entered.
It's human nature. You want to protect your pets, and the consequences of that are just beyond it. Beyond your imagination. It's you don't want to go there with the consequences of re-entering the building.
I think as well, because it was our freezer that went on fire. A freezer's not something you can ever turn off. Your freezer is permanently on. They always say to you, don't put your washing machine on, don't put your tumble dryer on when you go to bed. And you realise that, and you can avoid that risk. But your freezer's not something that you can ever actually turn off. So for me, for a long time, I had fear of fire even before this had happened, long standing. Don't know where it came from, but I've always had a fear of fire. But after we'd been through the fire for a long time, I was really quite psychologically, it was quite difficult. At the point, you worked night shifts, so sometimes I was in the house on my own at night and I just couldn't sleep. I was too frightened to actually go to sleep at night, because there was always just the worry of, what if something happened,
Things do get better over time, but it does take time.
It takes a long time. I mean, it's still affected us,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it does. It still does catch you out, now.
What we had was completely destroyed, and to rebuild to the current building regulations would have been possible, but it would have been a huge loss of space because of the increased insulation.
The stairs.
The stairs were an issue because
Yeah.
they didn't meet the current building regulations. Perfectly adequate for an older building, but when you take all that into consideration, and also the VAT, the VAT on
a new
building
build, you
materials.
don't pay.
So on a new build, you can claim that back, and financially it made sense. We were lucky because we had the space,
Yeah.
we had the land to actually rebuild onto. So that made life a lot easier.
We did have a look at new builds. We did have a look at just going somewhere completely different. And to begin with, just after the fire had happened, I never ever thought we would return back to where we previously lived. We were renting in Aberdeen, so we'd gone into the city, and for a while it felt so much safer because you had an actual fire station there, it was close by, you know, everything would have been a much faster response time. And I never thought we would come back out to the country. And then slowly but surely we started to spend a little bit of time on site, and we started to come in because we got new dogs, and we would come out and take the dogs on the walks that we used to do with our old dog. And slowly but surely we started to come round to the idea, we love where we live, you know, we're very lucky where we live and we absolutely love our house plot. And slowly but surely it was like, okay, yeah, we can return here. We'd started to overcome the trauma of just being here for a while. And then we kind of started to look at taking the outbuildings down and putting the new house on where the outbuildings had been. So when we look out a window, none of our windows have the same view as what we previously had. And that was important for us because psychologically, even if we had done the old house back up, I don't think psychologically any of us could have coped being back in those four walls again, because it's just too traumatic to kind of be in that property.
That space.
Yeah, it's still difficult. Whereas with the new house, we were able to get it spec'd how we wanted it.
Yeah.
And
we had a very good builder.
Yeah, we were very
Stuart
lucky.
Sutherland of Caledonia Homes. He done a tremendous job of basically giving us what we wanted. He listened to the trauma that we went through, and he gave us exactly what we
were
wanted.
very lucky.
It's very difficult to assess what the total loss was. Your contents insurance, we had an uplift because of getting married. It happened on our wedding weekend, effectively. But I think total value would be close to £1 million. And it sounds an awful lot of money. It is an awful lot of money. But the hidden costs involved with the insurance companies, the loss adjuster, the rental accommodation, the hotel stays, the surveys, the building quantity surveyors, those costs add up. And one lesson that we did learn very early on is to ensure that you've got adequate insurance for both contents, which we found subsequently that we were about 50% underinsured. So the financial loss was huge in just replacing what you had before. But then the buildings insurance, it's remarkable. The cost of building materials, even to renovate a damaged property, is huge. And it does take time.
Yeah.
Because you need to go through planning permissions for even renovating an existing damaged property. You still need to do the planning permissions and the building warrants, and that takes time.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens overnight.
No, it took a while. I think the biggest challenge, in all honesty, would probably be the psychological element of it all. You can build a house, you can rebuy your furniture, you know, you can do all these things. I think psychologically the toll on us was immense.
Yeah.
Really, wasn't it? You know, I think that's not to be underestimated at all, because you can go through a process, you know, and the process can be redesigning your new house and doing the build and all of these, and you just do it, and it just happens and it falls into place, and there's a sequence of events, and you come out the other end with a new home and you've got your new furniture and things. But psychologically, the damage, it takes a long time, because you grieve almost. I can remember having dreams, and I would go to sleep, and then, you know, in my dream I would dream that I was standing in my kitchen cooking, at my aga with my dog at my feet, which is how I used to always do it. And then you would wake up, and at the moment that you wake up, it hits you again because you're like, it's gone. That's all gone. That's never going to happen anymore. And that really does kind of catch you out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's stuff like that. And then the fear of it happening again, because I think when you've been through it once, you know, people say, oh, lightning doesn't strike twice, but you know, there's nothing to say that you wouldn't go through a fire again. And it's just that constant fear of what could happen, and the element
And
of
you can't say it won't happen, because
Absolutely.
it did happen.
Yeah, and I think that was a lot for me because, as I'd said before, I've always had a fear of fire. And people used to kind of always say to me, oh, but it's irrational, you know, there's no basis to this. And then it switched from it being a fear of something that could happen to something that did happen. And the fear kind of really, it really got heightened at that point, didn't it?
Yeah.
I struggled for quite a long time.
Part of my response to the trauma that Sandra was going through was to try and provide a home that was protected. Yeah? Our homes, even the cupboards and the loft space, have got smoke alarms, far in excess of what's required. I mean, Stuart was quite funny when we designed the house. He put in what was required for the building warrant as far as smoke alarms and heat detectors, and we trebled the amount of detectors in the house. He said, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. But the cost is minimal compared to the reassurance that's going to give us in the future. And the IMIS system that we eventually chose to put in will provide us with fire suppression, that even if we were out, we was at the shops and it was activated, our animals and everything associated with our house, the damage will be minimised.
Yeah.
You know, we won't lose our animals.
We never want anyone to sleep through a smoke alarm again, and we never want to lose another animal to a fire again.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not something we would ever wish to have to go through again.
I've done a lot of research on the internet. We started out looking at sprinkler systems, but then there's 2 or 3 different options there. The sprinkler system, the high pressure mist system, which I had a little bit of experience from my job in the oil and gas industry. And these systems are all available on the market at varying costs. And it comes down to the practicality of it. The good thing about the IMIS system, it's runoff of mains water. It's supplied by mains water. And you haven't got that bulk tank of that reservoir of water that takes up space in the new home. So that was quite appealing. And a sprinkler system will deluge your house. You're converting fire damage effectively into flood damage. You're still losing your home. Okay, you may not lose your pets, but the stuff, the everyday stuff, will still get destroyed because of the water damage. With the IMIS system, the volumes of water are much reduced, and it is very effective at what it's designed to do. So that was a big part of it. If you're doing a new build, spec it. Yeah, ask the builder to put in exactly what you want. The cost is minimal compared to the damage. You can recover from a fire in a house with an IMIS system very quickly. Spec the system, put it in. It's easy to do. If you want more smoke detectors are cheap. It's the installation costs. And a new build, you've got blank canvas. You can add smoke detectors to wherever you want in your home, and it's negligible cost.
I think when we were approaching the build, we went round and we had a look at quite a few show houses and things. And when you go in pre-fire, you would go in and you would maybe view a show house and you'd be like, oh, that's really nice and things. And then post-fire, you've got such a heightened awareness of it. And I think, in all honesty, for anybody that's doing a new build now, just start off with that heightened awareness, really focus on it. Little things, post-COVID, I think a lot more people are going open plan in their house, which is great. But if you've got a fire in that kitchen and it's open to your stairwell, then the fire's going to go straight up into your bedrooms. You know, just really sit back and think, okay, wait a minute, if there was a fire in that kitchen, I want there to be a physical door between that kitchen and my stairwell so I'm able to get out. We looked at other houses that were like 3 stories high.
3 stories high.
And you couldn't get out the top floor because it was the child safety locks and things. Well, how are you going to get out, God forbid, if there was a fire and your kids are trapped up in that room and you can't get out, you know? It's just really being so much more fire aware when you approach your planning point. You're sitting down with pen and paper and you're just sitting thinking through, okay, what room would there be most apt to be a fire in and what would I do if that happened? And just being a lot more aware, because the building regulations are very much your minimum standard, but by just putting that little bit of extra thought in on what you're going to be doing, you might be saving somebody's life. I think the extra measures that we've put in as part of the build when we were looking at it all is all to do with that psychological safety as well. It's all to do with that planning for if there was to be a fire. We never want somebody to be lying in their bed and sleeping through a smoke alarm going off. So every bedroom has got a smoke detector that will sound. We've got the fire suppression system so that we can go to sleep at night. It made a massive difference to me, actually being able to just go to sleep knowing that if, God forbid, something happened during the night, I'm safe. There will be a suppression system that will go off and I will be able to get out the house. We've got our animals obviously in the property now as well. We can go out for the day and know that they would survive if something was to happen, because there is a suppression system now, and it's just made us feel, it's taken that edge off, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
As Sandra said, it's the psychological damage that you've got to recover from, and this is, in the grand scheme of things, when you're building your new home, it's a minimal cost. The cost is not huge, and it's allowed us to really get on with our lives again.
Your home should be your sanctuary, I think. You know, so really and truly you should feel safe at all times in your home, and it should be somewhere where you are able to just rest and relax. And for us having the additional fire safety measures that we've put in place, you know, and it's nothing extreme, but having those just allows us to relax and feel safe.
Just reiterating the fire safety aspect of it. Make a plan.
Definitely.
Yeah. Communicate the plan with your kids. Yeah. Sounds daft, but honestly, it's worth the time. Just 5 minutes and have that conversation multiple times.
Especially, it depends on the age of the children as well, you know, but I think be age appropriate, but definitely, you know, they do fire drills in school, so why shouldn't you do one at home? Because in school your children are generally speaking always with an adult, whereas if they're in their bed and there's a fire on the outside of the door, what do they do? You know, so having a conversation with your children and preparing them so that if the smoke alarms go off, they do know what to do.
You don't want to be thinking on your feet when it's all going
Yeah.
wrong. Being prepared is valuable time. Yeah, so closing doors of a night time, absolutely do it. Just close your doors. It's not complicated stuff. Make sure your doors are closed, and make sure you've got adequate insurance. That's
Our bedroom was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because the hallway on the outside of our bedroom, so the external side of the door, was absolutely black. The whole of the hallway was completely black.
yeah.
But in our bedroom, because the door had been closed, it was the one room in the house where really the smoke had come in through little strands. So the white wall, you could see little strands of smoke that had come through, but the difference between the outside and the inside of that door was just phenomenal.
Yeah, it literally is death on one side, you survive on the other.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
And if you've got kids, you know, having that door closed just gives that few extra minutes for them. So definitely closing doors at night is a big thing, and not a lot of people do that. And especially, you know, with the animals and things as well, the temptation is to leave it
Let
open.
them roam.
But yeah, no, definitely get the doors closed. I mean, we were lucky. The boys were 16 and 17 at the time of the fire. And at that kind of age, you know, it's prime time, parents are away, they could have had a party in the house, you know, which is one of the other reasons we had another adult down staying with them. But, you know, if something like that had happened and they did have a party and there had been a whole lot of kids around and then the fire had happened, what on earth could the outcome have been? It just doesn't even bear thinking about, you know. Losing the animals was horrendous, but after the fire we have spoken to people, and you know, I've spoken to one woman and she lost her daughter in a fire, and sitting there on FaceTime watching our house burning down, seeing all the flames and knowing our animals were still inside was unbelievably horrendous. But I cannot imagine what anybody goes through exiting their property, watching the flames and knowing that actually they've still got a child in that house. It just, or any other adult, you know, anybody being trapped in, I can't imagine the damage and the suffering that would actually cause. It would be horrendous.
Yeah, I don't think you could really survive that.
No, I really don't think it would be something you could ever recover from.
Yeah, we were lucky. We only lost property, only lost possessions, we only lost animals. But things could have been a lot different. Yeah, really, it does bring it home to you how close we were. But on the positive side, we now live in a home that's well protected.
Yeah.
And we've done everything that we can possibly do to keep our family safe. And,
I think, you know, one of the things we haven't mentioned is after the fire happened, we were quite a long time when we were waiting on the insurance company. It was like 2 years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That we were waiting on everything being settled with the insurance company. And we were still going into the house to check it was all okay and things, you know. And it was awful because you crave your bed. You really, you know, when you've been through a traumatic event, you want comfort, you want your own space in your own home, and you want that safety and security back. And then you're entering into what was that space for you, and it's so damaged, you know. So we were going into what was our bedroom, and you wanted to just climb into your bed, but it was so damp and musty, and there was mould growing on it, and
We had 3 fire appliances pumping water for 5 hours.
there was a
So,
lot of water had gone into that house, and the damage that had been done.
yeah.
You know, and we were still looking at it for so long. Once we actually got to the point that we could clear the house, that made a massive difference, because then it just became an empty shell of a building rather than it being our home that we were watching deteriorating.
Yeah.
I think that was quite hard to actually do,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the burnt down house is still there. It's funny, we've angled the new house so that the new house doesn't look out at that one at all. But the old house will be turned into an outbuilding. It will become like a barn eventually type
Yeah,
thing, won't
a
it?
garage.
Yeah, we're going to need to put a new roof on it and bits and pieces. So there's still work to be done, but there again, we need to psychologically be in a place where we're going to go in and empty that out and make the whole thing into a shell of a building again. And it's taken a lot of time to kind of get to that point, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's been quite difficult to get there. So it will be converted over into something at some
Eventually.
point, or taken down, or whatever we're going to do.
Once the funds are available.
Well, yeah, but it's the time and the psychological element of it too,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. When we were talking about the selection process for what system we were going to put in, sprinklers, iMist or a mist system, the one thing that I didn't mention was some of the systems that are advertised on the internet and online YouTube are not compliant with current fire safety regulations. So, promise the earth, but realistically speaking, they don't always give you the performance that's required. At least the iMist system is tested, it's up to code, and it's of a price that's realistic.
You quite like the fact it was a national company and things as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you felt there was like security, that it was a big company, it wasn't just
it's an expanding company. Even since we selected the system, the company's grown. And even now I'm seeing, maybe it's just
heightened
coincidence,
awareness,
but I'm seeing a few of their vans driving around, even up here, which is unusual for a company that's based in the southeast of England. Yeah, so it is good. It is good from that point of view, but just be careful what company you select. Make sure you got the backup. Make sure it's going to perform as it should do, and it's got the right certification. And yeah. The most important message is keep yourself safe. Having that conversation and speaking to your kids, keeping the door shut, making sure you maintain your smoke alarms. If the battery's beeping, change the battery. It's not complicated stuff. If you're decorating, refit the smoke alarm. Yeah, it's important people do that.
close your doors at night when you're going to bed.
Yeah, close your doors. It's all that basic stuff that we kind of get normalised to, that everybody does it, and it's the easy option. Just let the cats and the dogs roam around downstairs. It'll be fine. But actually, you can shut your kitchen door. It's worth doing.
And just if you're approaching a new build, just be so much more fire safety aware. You know, really have fire protection in your mind when you're actually sitting down, looking at your plans, looking at the layout of your property. Just really consider, where could a fire more happen, and how are you going to protect from that? Because at your planning stage, when everything's just on paper, it's easy. You can move things, you can add a door, you can, there's no well, there is cost, but it's not the same as if you've got something actually built. You know, you can sit and plan things a lot easier. So take that moment, take that time. The other thing is as well, I don't know, I would imagine it's the same in England, but certainly in Scotland, the fire brigade will actually come out to your property and they will do a free fire safety check for you, and they will do a fire safety plan, make sure you've got enough smoke alarms and things. So, you know, really encourage anybody, if that service is available in the local area, to do it, you know.
And of course the legislation's changed in Scotland as well now, where you need the interlinked mains powered smoke alarms. And I can guarantee you from experience that the insurance company, if you haven't got that minimum requirement in your home, the insurance company have got an out. They've got an excuse to either reduce considerably your payout or not pay you out at all. That would have been a disaster for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the sake of £150, put the correct smoke alarms in.
Definitely.
Yeah, for peace of mind, but also for your protection when it comes to the insurance company and the claim. A lot of people don't have smoke alarms, or they don't meet the regulations. Ensure that they meet the regulations. It's not complicated, and it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not expensive.